So let's just talk about what is an internet department. An internet department, in its traditional sense and its definition, is a department that handles everyone else. What I mean by that is you probably, if you run a dealership, you probably already have a sales department that consists of a couple different individuals. Usually there's a manager, usually there's a salesperson, usually there's, or many salespeople, and usually there is an F&I manager, a finance and insurance manager. Sometimes multiple managers wear multiple hats. Sometimes managers do selling. Sometimes sales guys do the managing, but it's basically a person who is there for the belly to belly sales, the traditional sales. Now, when it comes to the internet department, you're pretty much concerned about everyone else, right? The people who are not in your dealership, if you want to look at it that way. So, out of all the billions of people out there, or the small percentage that are an enthusiast in our industry and they're looking to buy another motorcycle or power sport product from a dealership, and they're not standing in your showroom, that is who your internet department will basically be the customer service guide for. Okay. Internet department also is a technology center. Okay. With all these different types of ways that customers can now communicate with us. I call them doorways. There's the traditional phone call, there's the email, but we've also got chat, we've got text, right? We've got direct messaging from our social media accounts. I mean, it's endless, right? So an internet department is really a centralized place where all of those electronic communications, and phone is one of them, can go in an organized, streamlined fashion, not only so that they are received in the right place, but also that they have an answer to the customer because that's the way that the customer has chosen to communicate with them. Now, why can't you have just one sales department that handles all of it? Nobody said you can't. I've just seen it where it takes two different types of individuals for whichever type of communication the customer wants to give us at that time. And what I mean by that is it's in the personnel and how they're trained. Most of the time, you will get a salesperson who's on the floor who is not great at typing, or they have just a sales mentality of sell, sell, sell on the floor that doesn't translate well to the phone, meaning the ABC, the always be closing, right? That's not what the phone is used for. The phone is used to motivate and to get the customer to the showroom so that you can have those ABC moments with the customer there at your home court advantage. Now, again, the two difference makers in this is going to be the people that you staff it with. And so obviously the internet department people, the management or the people working these leads that are dedicated to workflows and following a process, right? That's not always the best thing that sales guys do, right? They're all in it for the sale. And if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that. But the internet department cannot be handled that way. They're usually responsible for quick response times, especially during business hours. They're responsible for all of the leads and where they might come from. And we'll get into all those different ones. They're responsible for outbound communication in a processed manner, meaning I'll call on this day. And if I don't get an answer, I'll call on this next day. And if I don't get an answer, I'll send an email on this day. And I'm going to send this templated text this time. And so it's all about a process execution. So why is it crucial for dealerships to have a dedicated team for online leads in today's market? It's because of two main reasons. Number one, that's how your customer wants to communicate with you, the business. And number two, it's because your competition already is. Believe it or not, customers will go with the path of least resistance 9 times out of 10, meaning if price was not a factor in any of this stuff and the transaction was simplified and it was met with a consistent and a pleasurable process, or pleasant process rather, they're going to go with that one because that is what they've chosen to do their business with, right? They want something that's going to be easy, that caters to their needs and their wants in that moment. And even though you may not have the best price, if you've got a really rock solid department that can handle that customer from A to B, meaning from lead, sent, submission to contact to appointment, and to ensure them that this is where we're going, we're going to look at this, we're going to do this when you get here. I mean, all those things matter when it comes to customer service. For whatever reason, we have not been proved wrong in that manner. The Carvana model has not killed the dealerships with an internet department. People still do not want to buy vehicles 100% online. I get Tesla's very popular. That's a different type of thing. They don't have dealerships. You buy manufacturer direct. That's not who we are. That's not what we're going to be. Maybe we will one day, but until now, customers are looking for human interactions and service to their needs and wants. Okay. Now, here's some statistics to kind of throw at you. I mean, Americans are spending more time online shopping vehicles than they are visiting showrooms. So really, when you think about your percentage of people, of manpower or woman power that are dedicated to in showroom customers versus not in showroom customers, the differences are dramatic. You usually have one person that handles hundreds and hundreds of leads a month, but yet you have 3 or 4 sales guy that handle 100 leads a month that walk into your showroom. I mean, you tell me how many showroom ups you're getting. And if that is enough to staff all of your salespeople, then great. But what I would suggest is that either you cross train them in internet sales or you start beefing up that department so that you are ready for the internet department to be launched. Okay. And we're going to tell you how to get there. Now, another big reason on why you might want to consider putting together an internet department, having a strategy for your internet leads even, is because the digital influences that customers are now receiving online are shorter than ever. They're getting multitudes of different exposed images, videos, newspapers, all sorts of different influences that are coming now digitally, right? You might still have the occasional one where a friend rides and that's an influence touch point, or they see a brand logo as they're driving by a billboard, maybe something like that. Magazine, okay. But they're looking at websites, they're going to Facebook Marketplace and looking at bikes. They're on social media, they're on YouTube, they're on TikTok, and it's just nothing but an inundation of lifestyle images of the sport that you like. And if they are in that funnel, they may be getting up to their 20th to 24th digital touch point at that point. When it's time for them to submit a lead, guess who's going to be there? Your dealership with the internet person. So roles and responsibilities. I mean, this is basically the blueprint on how you would want to structure one. Now, I've built a lot of internet departments. I've built a lot of BDCs, call centers, whatever you want to call them, from single store managed internally to regional structured that covers, the entire West Coast, with 30 different people doing internet leads and inbound phone calls and outbound phone calls. So the points that I want to make to you is that you need to know where your benchmarks are for who you can afford, first of all, and what you might want to do for attracting the right kind of talent to fill this position. So the first things first, you should have at least one person dedicated to nothing but your online leads and online phone calls. Now, this person is going to be your main point of contact for all these customers that are submitting leads, and they should be juggling I change this number from time to time, but 60 to 80, 80 to 100. But I would definitely not go over 100 leads. Now, 60 to 80 for a Harley dealer, maybe 80 to 100 for a metric dealer with multi-line, and they're just getting more volume. That's about the ratio that I would go. Okay. Single line Harley, 60 to 80, multi-line, 80 to 100. And, that's with a big volume of leads. Now, if you can do the math and look in your CRM or look at your website and say, you know what, I got, 200 leads, I got 300 leads, I got 1,000 leads last month. Well, maybe average that out over the last year or the last 6 months, last 3 months, whatever you feel is appropriate, and go, yeah, I'm going to need about 2 or 3 people to do this job. That's fine. You don't need to hire 2 or 3 people if you've got nobody right now, but you should put one person dedicated to it. Okay. And we're going to call them the manager because they are managing your entire online strategy. All leads, all phone calls, they go to them, and they're going to manage this thing called the CRM, the customer relation management tool. Now, once you feel that this BDC, this internet department, again, whatever you want to call it is fine. This is the person who's handling your digital traffic log. After a while, you're going to probably need to beef that up to a second person and a third person. And that manager is going to now have to learn a new skill set of managing people and keeping those people fed, keeping them on the phone, and keeping them productive. Okay. This manager, they should be the best phone person. They should be the best email person. They should be the best texter, right? And there's usually a couple different ways that you can test your person. If you're not sure, send in a lead, see how it gets answered, right? If you halfway like the response, or if you don't think that you could do better, then they're probably the right person for the job. Now they would need some formal training and process set up on how to do the job and do the function, but the overall understanding on how to communicate digitally needs to be there. And I'll say that again, the overall understanding of the digital communication needs to be part of this person's hiring process. Not have you sold at a dealership before and what is your product knowledge? All that shit goes out the window. This needs to be about communication first and foremost, and if they can do it digitally. Okay. So the other couple roles is lead specialist. That's the next tier down. The lead specialist is going to be someone who reports to the internet manager. And again, their whole job, their whole function, their whole existence in that department is to answer leads, make outbound calls, and to manage their assigned customers. Typically, they'll get their own customers. That is a round robin type process. So meaning the next customer that submits a lead, that person gets one, and then the next person gets it. That's if you're hiring multiple people. Okay. Now these people need formal training, and they need to be basically the next batter up if your manager gets promoted or walks or quits or gets sick, whatever. But there's always someone filling that pipeline right behind that manager to take that next spot. and you just keep hiring to train for the replacement. We've all done that with sales managers that turn into floor managers, that turn into assistant sales managers, that turn into sales managers, that turn into GSMs, that turn into GMs, right? You can trace that lineage all the way from salesperson to GM. Well, think about it the same way, right? These people can be lead specialists or they can be call center specialists, and then they get up to a manager position and then they can go off from there. Okay. So they're treated no differently. The last position that I put in there is called an admin. Now, some people already have what's called a marketing manager. They may help out with events or getting pictures of motorcycles on your listings, posting on social media, creating some fun videos. That's fine. An admin position is perfect for the internet manager to help manage. And what they would do in that internet department is they would help with some CRM reconciliation. They would help with some reporting, and they would basically take some of the administrative work off of the internet manager so the manager can focus on the people and getting the job done with the amount of volume of leads that are coming in. The manager needs to know how to do the job of everyone, but the admin is there to help them so that they can focus on the important, prioritized things. Now, how can a dealership ensure team members are trained to manage and follow up on leads effectively? Well, there's a couple different ways. You can do the training yourself, meaning you, the dealership, you, the manager. You need to sit down with these people. You need to go over some scripting, call them word tracks, call them call guides. It really doesn't matter what you call them, as long as you have a bullet pointed, at a minimum, list of things that they would want to say to every customer. And it would go something like this, proper greeting with your name. Hello, Mr. Customer. My name is Jacob and I'm with XYZ Powersports. You want to go with a confirmation of lead received. We received your interest, Mr. Customer, on this XYZ model. It's got X amount of miles or it's new. And then we need to ask a couple more questions to help control that conversation. Some of my personal favorites are, what are you currently riding? Assume that they're riding something and just go ahead and ask them, what do you currently ride? Whether they want to trade it in or not it doesn't matter. The other thing that you want to ask is, what part of town do they live in? This will kind of help you determine whether they're local, whether they are out of state, whether you need to do transport or shipping, or this deal's got to be done over the phone, right? Asking them where they live and then putting that together with a little bit of a distance in your mind as you're talking to them will help greatly in the next steps that you take in the phone call. The other things that I always like to ask, and this is my third favorite, is how they're going to be paying for it. I might say something or have my people say something that's to the effect of, Mr. Customer, is this something that you're looking to pay cash for, or are you going to take advantage of our awesome, super great, low interest APR, factory promo, whatever, financing? And make sure that that's written down. So if you have your guide, your script, your materials ready to go, you can now expect what these people are going to be saying to your customers 100% of the time. Now, if they go off script, that's on them. You got to reel that back in. But if they're on script, you now have an agenda for each and every phone call on how it should be played out, and you're there to help back them up if they get into any trouble. Now, you could do some formal training. There are many companies out there that can do this whole job for you, or they can train your people to do it for you. And whichever works for you is fine. Some cost a lot, some cost a little. We've got some resources that we can help you out with if you want to contact us. But as far as being trained, I mean, that's going to be reliant on the management team. You have to inspect what you expect. And that comes into reporting, that comes into the role playing, that comes into scheduled one-on-ones, and just making sure that your team knows that they're supported and that they're really making a difference in the sales department. So what processes should be in place to handle leads as they come in? Well, first of all, you need a CRM. And for the dealers that are out there not using a CRM to guide all of their customer information into a singular place, a nucleus, if you will, where everything goes, walk-ins, campaign calls, inbound phone calls, all your internet leads. If you guys don't have a CRM yet, I have no idea what you're doing, and it just sounds like a big mess. I've seen some of these dealers get thousands of leads a month from all various different sources, different websites, different events, different whatever. And imagine trying to manage that and know where you're at with every customer without an electronic guide like a CRM telling you, here's what we did today, here's what we did last week, here's what we did last month, and here's what we're doing annually. The CRM is a very important tool to all of this. If you don't have any CRM, go ahead and turn off this recording because it's not going to make sense to you from here on out. So the CRM, most of them, they do have the ability to put in some triggers or some workflows. Now, the process is really going to be handled in how you design it out. And I won't go too much into the nerdy talk about how to build a workflow or how to trigger this or that, but it basically needs to be lined out in a sequence of events. You might have even heard about a 30-day process, a 60-day, 90-day process. My particular favorite is a 21-day workflow process that from day 1 to day 21, I know what's going to happen on every day that my people are supposed to be communicating with that customer. Meaning day one, we want a phone call, we want a text, and we want an email sent to every new internet lead on day two, on day three, on day five, on day seven. And at the 21st day, that customer, if they don't reply back to us, they go into a different workflow that's longer and more automated, that doesn't require my person to be making follow-up calls on day 30. Now, what other processes should be in place? Well, you need to kind of have a standard of ethics in there that every customer is going to be, greeted with a smile. If you have a brand to uphold, or if you have a message or a mantra, a credo, whatever your dealership is in your market, the best this and that, the most this and that, you need to be doing that on every single phone call. Okay. These people need to be structured and not in a loose time, right? We're talking about coverage at this point. They need to be scheduled almost like an hourly employee, to where they clock in, clock out, and that there's always coverage for the phones when a new lead comes in, either a phone call or a new internet lead. Other processes that you might want to consider is some other reporting, some other workflows that kind of deal with your performance metrics. If you want to think about it in terms of productivity, these people should be making a minimum of X amount of phone calls, a minimum of X amount of text messages, a minimum of X amount of emails. Those are the three main communication points that we are talking about with customers. There are more, but those are the three main ones. And so following the process on how we get that done, how we report that, and then what happens when a customer replies back, right? Why do I say that? Well, typically we run with a 30 to 40% contact rate, which means that we have a 60 to 70% non-contact rate, meaning we're leaving messages or we're emailing or texting multiple times before we get a reply. What happens when we get that reply? We're going to need to process in there, look it up, roll with it. Yes, yes, yes. Let me do this. Let me do that. Okay. We're dealing with hundreds of leads a month. So that process is going to be imperative. How can dealerships use CRM systems to track and improve lead management? Well, the sourcing is going to be probably the biggest thing. Where your leads are coming from can dictate a successful department or not. I do believe that you need multiple sources coming from multiple places. The first being your website. The second could be an OEM website. The third can be a third-party classified site, but you need multiple if you can afford the placement on these different platforms. Advertising is huge. And what helps out the marketing team or your marketing vendor the most is that if you can pull a report of those customers that have actually submitted a lead from those sources and feed it back through the machine so that you know what's working and you start to get an ROI. Okay. It cost me this much to generate a lead on this platform, and I got X amount to the showroom as a show. That's one of the biggest metric. Coming into your door is a big metric. And then I got X amount to sell, right? Which is really, that's the only thing they would care about at the end of the day. But it's all broken up into pieces. So the CRM can also let you know where you're at in terms of your percentages of performance. Okay. So with our stuff, we use what's called the 5 by 50%. Okay. And there's 5 KPIs that we track, and we all want them to be about 50%. And they do go like this. The first one is going to be your sheer outbound call volume, right? We're going to assume that everybody's going to get a text and an email, but the call volume outbound for new internet leads and follow up on new unclosed internet leads, and even, follow up on any call, really, if they came through a showroom visit that you're following up on, if that's your mandate. But it's the outbound call activity, right? Emails can be automated, text can be automated. So we really, 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 really want to track the outbound calls, because it takes a human usually to dial that phone number and see if someone answers. Okay. And then that's the next KPI. So we have outbound calls, and then we have how many people answer. We'll call that a contact. Okay. So from the percentage of contacts to outbounds, you want to be in the 50 percentile. I would hope that if you make 100 phone calls, you would hope that half of those would connect, or someone says, hello, right? Someone answers the actual phone. And I know not every lead is going to have a phone number, so that's why there's some variances in this, but I'm just giving you the raw outline. The third thing is going to be how many appointments are set. Okay. So if you're paying attention, we've got outbound calls that we're trying to talk to people and communicate. And then we've got how many people answer the phone. Now, of those people that answer the phone, it's appointment set rate. So of those conversations that we're having, how many are we getting to commit to a certain day and time to come and visit our dealership? Divide those two, and you should be half of those, 50%. Okay. Why? Because when you talk to a person, you either set an appointment or you don't. It's really kind of easy, and we can adjust the technique from there. Now, from there, once you set an appointment, now you're a day or two later, maybe a week later, and you're tracking how many shows you have over that time period. So from appointment set to appointment shown, and obviously the next one there is appointment sold. Now, those two are also 50%. And again, all I'm doing is I'm dividing the one number into the rest, and I'm looking for that 50 percentile. Now I'll say it backwards, right? So we want the solds to half of them to come from our shows. Why? Because everybody that comes into your showroom is not going to buy. And so we would expect that they either buy or they don't. That's why we're looking for a 50%. It's just that easy. Now, some of you folks are going to be in the 60 to 70. Some of you are going to be in the 30 percentile, 40 percentile, less, more, right? You're knowing where your benchmark is, your baseline. Okay. So your sets come from your shows. Your shows come from your, I'm sorry, your solds come from your shown appointments. Your shown appointments come from your set appointments. Your set appointments come from your contacts or however many people you're talking to. And your however many people you're talking to comes from the amount of outbound calls that you make in a day, in a week, in a month. Pick your time frame. So that's what we call the 5x50. And your CRM should really be the management tool to help with that, because you want to look at individual performance. You want to help you want help looking at your team's performance as an aggregate, if you've got multiple people, obviously. And then if you have sales guys doing the same function for maybe a hybrid approach, right? Maybe you don't have an internet department or you're not interested in building one. You can still apply that 5x50 to the salespeople who handle that from just the manager assigning them or your CRM doing it automatically. So it is important to focus on the customer's online journey and life cycle. That's why we do it this way, because when a customer submits the information online, assume a couple things. Assume that they want to buy and that they're not just, wasting your time or yanking your chain. And the other thing that you want to go ahead and assume is that they want to visit the showroom, because that's where the transaction is going to take place. You can also assume that they're shopping multiple dealerships. So if you have a popular product and you know of competitors that also carry your same type of product or something similar, go ahead and assume that they're shopping them as well. And so really what it comes down to is who's going to be able to answer that customer's request the fastest, who's going to be able to answer that customer's request the best or the most professional, and who's really going to show that customer the best time and the most effort put in. That's what really wins. We had a case a number of years ago where a dealership was adamant about giving up on the third try. But what we had found out is that most of the dealership's leads were giving up on them on the first or second try. They didn't even make it to the third. But yet we show that it takes almost a 17 to 21 day process for these customers to get back to you, unless the customer just knows what they want and they want to buy that day. But what we found is that we needed a shorter process because it needed to be more intense, because we know that the competitors are sleeping when it comes to answering these internet leads. They barely get to them the first time. Maybe they'll get to them a second time. Rarely do they ever get back to them a third time. My process with the CRM keeps you on track with the life cycle, call it a workflow or customer journey, to have multiple touch points for that customer before we absolutely give up on them on the 21st day. The customer journey and life cycle can also introduce other ideas to the customer that maybe the person won't think of. We can make sure that it says, talk about this, talk about that. All the things that I just talked about with how are they going to be buying, cash or finance? What are they currently riding? Maybe there's a trade. What part of town do they live in? Are they a local or are they out of town? You can also start to introduce some ideas about the service department. You can also start to introduce ideas about the parts and service department and maybe some accessories or gear. Okay. All those things can happen within this customer journey, and it can even be done automated. So some common pitfalls that you might want to be weary of, right? You want to obviously build this thing to be a beast when it comes to communication and customers are coming in asking for this internet department. Some of the common pitfalls, some of the common mistakes would be in complacency. That is the biggest thing that I see, is that once you get a internet department up, rocking and rolling, there seems to be a little bit of a relaxed notion, right? Is that, oh, I've got this. We're kind of clicking and grooving. Now, all that's great, but we've seen it actually go backwards. They aren't on the throttle as much, or they aren't as busy towards the end of the month when it's time to make that final push, or we're trying to hit goals and, they aren't readjusted into either something that's realistic or something that's just over the top, right? So the complacency is the biggest killer of any efficient internet department / BDC that I've seen. The second thing is going to be the key team members, right? We've all had sales teams where maybe one person kind of became a little bit of a cancer and they crap people out, or they're just not on with the process, and they need to be basically cut from that department and replaced with the next person up, right? Next man up, next woman up, next person up. So when it comes down to it, is don't let your people get complacent, and don't let the cancer grow within, because those are the biggest two mistakes that I've seen. Other ones are not growing and keeping track of the different sources that are coming through. Maybe marketing might add a new lead source. Maybe they change a process and it's just not as effective and it doesn't get updated from there. So little things from there, but most operators will kind of understand, hey, we're trying to get X amount of results out of this department or X amount of results per person in the team, and we're just not getting there, and we need to look at the numbers and say why. So the biggest way that you can prevent your team from falling into that comfort zone is by just constantly monitoring them, constantly encouraging them, right? They typically do not get to see the final outcome of a lot of these dealers. That's if you are running the type of department that hands them over to a sales guy. That is some of the processes that we run, is that the internet department is just to drive them in and then they get turned for the sales team, right? That's why there's some cohesiveness there. But being involved with them, being fair with them, and paying them what they're worth, this is a complex, heavy workload job comparatively to the sales department. I mean, again, I was a sales guy. I get it. You're trying to hustle. You're doing the most efficient things for your time and your money because that's how you're paid on commission, and it's all in the deal. But when there's not a deal to be had, a lot of those guys don't do nothing, right? They walk around. They might help with some inventory things on the showroom floor, cleaning, moving bikes around, whatever. But if you think about it, most of them are not on the phone the same way that this person is on the phone or an internet manager is on the phone, because they're worried about everybody else. How should dealerships measure the success of their internet department? Okay, well, obviously it's going to be in how many vehicles they sell. That's really what pays the bills and keeps the lights on. How many units can I get sold from this effort to pay for itself, plus some as a profit? Now, that's going to be tougher for some to manage and easier for others. The ones with a heavy process and they know what's going to happen once that customer comes in, that's usually easier to track. But the best way is to look at it from a contribution perspective. And if you want to just continue on with my 5 by 50% rule, let's go ahead and use that as the sixth KPI. Is what is the percentage of units claimed by the BDC to sold compared to all of the sold deals of the department. So let's say you have 50 sold vehicles, sales department wide, that's for all of sales, but 25 of those came from efforts by the internet department to bring them in because they started their life as an inbound phone call or lead or a campaign call. So that would be a 50% contribution, right? We would want to at least have half of our deals coming from those online communications and bringing them in. So what's one action a dealership can take today to start building a better internet department? Well, you would have to see where you're at. And depending on who's listening to this, you may already have one that's cranking out a bunch of appointments already and looking for some tips on how to get better. Or you're on the opposite side of the spectrum with nothing, right? You've got 1 or 2 sales guys and that's it. You don't even know what an internet department is. You haven't tried to put one together. That's okay. We're going to talk about in our next segment what it's going to take to put that together and where to get started with the strategy.
Dealers, discover the power of MotoHunt's Inventory Ads program, designed to drive leads and sales for your motorcycle dealership. Our dynamic ads automatically showcase your current in-stock inventory on Google and Meta products catalogs, reaching buyers exactly when they're searching. With targeted ad campaigns, seasonal adjustments, and real-time performance tracking, you can optimize your ad spend and see impressive results. These are not your traditional SEM campaigns. These are product ads that show customers real-time motorcycles and powersports for sale and direct them directly to your landing page. Sign up today and get a marketing edge over your competition with MotoHunt.